Good afternoon and welcome to the weekly webinar series with the Kentucky Small Business Development Center. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Janet Flaw. I'm with the Louisville Center, one of 10 centers throughout the Commonwealth providing service to all 120 counties. If you're not familiar with Small Business Development Centers, or SBDCs for short, then allow me to share what it is we actually do. So our professional staff provides assistance to entrepreneurs just like yourself, regardless of what point you are in the life cycle of your business. So if you're just starting out, we can assist with market research, business plan development, help you find startup capital. For existing businesses, we can assist in growing your business, whether that's hiring your first employee or finding capital to expand your operations. Or maybe you need help with cash flow, or maybe you're ready to pivot your business. So our staff can assist with that. And if you're ready to sell your business or you're ready to retire, we have some staff on hand that can help you with that as well. So I said our professional staff, they really have a wide array of knowledge and experience in various industries. And it really allows the Kentucky Small Business Development Center to provide a more customized experience or service to meet your particular business needs. We do all that at no cost to you, thanks to the U.S. Small Business Administration, which co-sponsors our program, which is then administered by the University of Kentucky, who partners with regional universities, community colleges, and economic development agencies. We're part of a national network, America's SBDC, which means there's really a small business development center to serve every county across the U.S. To learn more, you can visit our website at kybizhelp.com. There you'll find additional resources to help start, fund, or grow your business. You'll also find all the socials that we're on, so you can find your favorite and connect to stay up to date on news, services, and events. You can also go ahead and request personal assistance by emailing info@kybizhelp.com or dialing 1-888-475-7232. A recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you later on this afternoon. So if you have trouble with audio or you just need to step away, know that you'll have access to the entire recording later on today. Moderating today's event are my fellow staff from the Louisville Center, Dave Etkin, our Center Director, and Tony Sears, our Assistant Center Director. Good Wednesday afternoon to you guys.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Janet. Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to share my welcome also to everyone that joining us today on KSBDC's Wednesday webinars. Thanks so much for joining us. We're always happy to have you here. And again, I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the director here in Louisville, the Louisville Small Business Development Center. And with me today, as always, is Tony Sears, who's our assistant director. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Dave, and hello, everyone. We're so happy to have everyone.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, Tony, you and I spend a lot of time with the companies we work with trying to understand what the new normal is going to look like and help them come up with new strategies, don't we?
Yes, we do. We spend a lot of time doing that.
And in many cases, a small business owner is faced with the realization that the product or service they've been successfully providing their customers for years may not have a real future. And so part of any business's go-forward strategy must be a hard look at new revenue streams that may be totally unlike what they've done before. So today we're just going to do just that. We're going to explore possibility of a new revenue stream through government procurement opportunities. And leading us today is Nancy Brown. Say hello, Nancy. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. So anyway.
You might want to just check at the top, Nancy, see if your microphone's turned on at the very top there.
It'll be blue. A blue microphone. It'll be blue. Okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
And we don't, okay.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'm checking. It looks like her microphone is on, but I think something may have happened, Nancy, on your end as before. Maybe the microphone got changed to a different mic on your computer. Is that an option that you have? Yeah, maybe try, Nancy, if you want to leave the room and come back in. That seemed to work last time.
Yeah. As always with technology, we are at the mercy of the tech spirits out there, so hopefully they'll smile on us a little bit. But, you know, Nancy and her staff at the Kentucky Procurement Office, we call them the Kentucky PTAC for short, they've been really helpful to us and some of our clients. We've actually did a program called 360 Louisville last year where we worked through some companies to get them set up with government procurement and some other opportunities. Tony led that very well. It was a very successful program. And Nancy was very instrumental in helping that cohort get through and become successful.
She was an excellent resource, Dave.
Yes,
Excellent.
she is. And here she comes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Nancy, let's do it.
Yeah, I just had to do a dramatic entrance, I guess. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So with that, if we go too much, let's just jump right in there. So I'm going to turn it over to Nancy. I do have to say that Nancy has kind of a really cool background, and she once worked in Jordan's Queen Rainia's office. And so that must have been a really, great experience. I'm kind of envious of some of your background. So I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you.
So let's jump in and.
Okay, so let me switch the slide and hopefully just do one more sound check and we get started.
Sounding good so far. Let's go for it.
All right, sounds good. Okay. Yep. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and I hope you are staying healthy and safe, and you're enjoying life to the best of everyone's ability. And thank you, Janet and Kevin, as well, and everyone else, Tony, everyone else on the SBDC team. And as Kevin mentioned, my name is Nancy Brown, and I am with the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We are managed by the government, and our cooperative agreement is managed by KSTC, or the Kentucky Science and Technology Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Our funding is comes from a combination of federal and state grant money and in-kind support. And since we are 100% funded by the government, we keep all our services free of charge and offered only to Kentucky businesses. There is ways, if you're not in the state of Kentucky, and I'm not sure if you are or not, if you are not in the state of Kentucky, there are other PTACs that I'm going to clarify later, but there is other PTACs that will be in your state. We are located downtown Lexington and have an awesome team of 7 counselors, and some of them are in Lexington, some of them are in Bowling Green, Somerset. So we're pretty much all over the state. Just to learn more about where we are and how we can help you, just feel free to visit kyptac.com and learn more about us. And next slide. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? In 2019, the government spent $4.45 trillion on federal and state spending, and a large sum of that was spent on goods and service contracts. And whether you like it or not, the spending will continue to increase this year, next year, and all the coming years due to a lot of factors such as the pandemic that we're in today, the economy, government needs, and much more other factors that will allow us to meet the needs of the federal agencies and the military. Now, the government's goal is to award at least 23% of those contracts to small businesses. So out of the 100% budget that's being spent on federal contracts, there's a regulation or a rule that the government made that said we're going to give 23% of the total annual spending budget and it's between 23 to 25% going to small businesses. So if you are a small business, and I think you might be since you're on the SBDC, and you are interested in working with the government, pursuing government contracts is not for everyone. And I hate to be, this person who delivers bad news, but it does require patience, persistence, and an understanding of federal acquisition rules. And also, like if you're working on a state and local levels, it also requires additional rules and additional requirements that you have to meet. It typically takes at least 18 months of planning before a government contractor wins their first contract. I've seen people win in 12 months. I've seen people win in 6 months. I've seen people take 3 to 4 years to win. So I'm not saying that 18 months is the guarantee or it's just a rule of thumb or an average. Plan to invest significant amount of time and resources until you become procurement ready. You're going to identify potential opportunities, marketing to potential clients. You're going to be developing proposals. You're going to be implementing your first contract. You have to comply with federal and state and local rules and regulations, and also have to keep up to date on everything that's happening with the government, including, the latest and the greatest thing right now is cybersecurity. So that's something that, when you become a federal contractor or a government contractor, this is something that you have to comply with and stay on top of. So that said, while it's not easy to become a government contractor, there's several government resources and tools that can help you win your first government contract. So today, I'm going to give you kind of an overall guide of how the KY PTAC can help you and how can we kind of be your support system throughout the process of becoming a government contractor. So I am going to talk a little bit about the PTAC. I'm going to talk about the Kentucky PTAC services. We're going to discuss whether you are, as a business, ready to become a federal contractor or not. I mean, again, I said earlier, it's not for everyone. And then we're going to talk about our limitations and the limitation, not your limitations, but our limitations as an agency, what we can support you with and what we cannot support you with. And then we're going to dive into the procurement cycle, and that should be a pretty quick cycle. But I wanted to explain kind of if you think of a project cycle or an event, so what goes on into that, and why does the government takes certain steps and precautions and put in place in order to complete the project from A to Z, or from planning to execution, if you will. So I wanted to kind of describe that cycle pretty, in a very, very brief way, but I thought it would be very helpful for the new listeners and the new attendees. So let's jump in. So next slide. So the first step you want to do in order to start government contracting is to enlist a support system or a support network. You have the SBDC here, you have SCORE, but you also have your friends at the PTAC. We are, since we are in the state of Kentucky, we call ourselves Kentucky PTAC. So to give you a little overview about the PTAC, the government created a program called the PTAP, or the Procurement Technical Assistant Program, in 1985, which it kind of administered, it was administered by the Defense Logistics Agency for the specific purpose of helping businesses that want to learn more about doing business with the government. They placed a PTAC, they went and placed a PTAC office in every state with the mission to promote economic development by assisting companies in the process of providing products or services and goods to the federal, state, and local government. When I said the PTAC in every state, so there is a PTAC in every state, but there's sometimes multiple offices in every state as well. We are, like I said earlier, we are in Lexington, Kentucky, and there's really, we are working on expansion because we just see a huge need in the state of Kentucky. But you know, that's going to come in the next year or so. But you know, if you're not in the state of Kentucky, there's going to be other locations for you to get the same exact type of assistance. And I'm assuming also the same will apply for SBDCs and SCORE. So the Kentucky PTAC does offer coach, train, and we call it, our slogan is called coach, train, and equip. And what we do is offer coach assistance training and provide you with tools to get your business into the government space. We offer resources to connect you with government opportunities. We have a lot of tools in place, and these are tools that are, again, passed down to you for free. And we focus on results in terms of growth. And so we kind of hold you accountable, if you will, and we kind of check in with you, give you a plan, give you the next steps. You know, so there's a lot of ongoing relationship and a lot of activities that you're always, once you're in the PTAC, you know, you're always going to hear from us. You're always going to hear engagement, you know, a lot of engagement from us. And, you know, we, like my boss likes to say, Daryl Henderson, he's like, he always says, we love our clients and we're, you know, we're with them forever. So unless they tell us not to. So, you know, so engagement is a big part of working with the PTAC. So as I mentioned earlier, as far as like what type of businesses we help, as I mentioned earlier, we help businesses that are, whether they are small or prime businesses or agencies. We work with pretty much anyone that wants to do business. And the type of businesses that we help is, it goes on from entrepreneurs to startups, and I'm not going to go over all of that, but basically, you know, it's even if you think you're, you know, very small, we'll work with you. And if you think you're too large, we'll still work with you as well. We also assist with, we assist the states and even local municipalities with supplier diversity connections. And we continue to try to help the state with improving their supply chain as well. So that said, I want to point out something here very important, is that unlike the SBDC and the SBA and SCORE, we do not work with anyone who is in the what we call a pre-seed stage, or someone who does not have necessarily a product or a service to sell to the government yet. So we do, if you have a project that you're doing research on, for example, you know, there's a program, there's a chapter in our organization called SBR STTR, and that helps businesses with research that's funded by the government. So that's one area we can help you if you're not necessarily a business, but you have an idea and that you're trying to test, and the government can support you with. That said, if you don't have necessarily an idea, but you have a business, you still have a business, but you don't necessarily have a product or a service, or you don't have a business at all and don't have a product and service, you know, we're still gonna, you know, be nice, and we're still gonna welcome you into our organization. However, it's just our work with you is going to be extremely limited. And even though we would love to talk to you all day, it's just, you just have to kind of identify a business and a service that the government is willing to buy. So, and that, you know, we start that by, you know, starting a conversation with you and try to, you know, understand where you are and where you are in that process, whether you are a entrepreneur or a startup versus, you know, a full functioning established business. Okay, next. This slide goes over what happens when we acquire a new client. So I'm not going to go into details with this, but we just created this cool infographic with one of our interns, and she did a great job. So I wanted to share it real quick and kind of explain to you the process of acquiring a new client. So once we acquire a new client, since the PTAC is a small group, we offer help and support to over 1,200 companies that wants to do business with the government. It becomes really burdensome sometimes on trying to manage, you know, the amount of meetings and all of that. So I just wanted to kind of show you that when you become a client, you know, you're going to go online on the kyptac.com. You're going to register. The system is going to generate an email that's going to be emailed to you that says you've been assigned a client. And then right after that, the counselor is going to contact you. So like someone like me, I'm a senior counselor at PTAC, or one of the other 6 counselors will reach out to you and say, hey, we got your email. We know that you're our client and we're ready to work with you. So you're going to get basically a notification of acceptance that says you've been accepted as a client. And that process is pretty simple, but you know, again, I wanted to brag about this infographic. The next infographic that I want to brag about is about the services that we offer. So let me just kind of go over that real quick with you. And there's a lot of services and topics we cover in the government. And, you know, honestly, we're not going to learn all of that in one day. It's nearly impossible to do that in the next, you know, 20 minutes or so. So I kind of will be very fast, but if you want more additional details, you know, always feel free to reach out to us and you know, we can have a one-on-one conversation with you. And just so you know, like the government world, it takes a really long time to understand. So don't feel bad that you don't understand it. Don't feel bad if you're scratching your head and, you know, and think that, you know, I'm not making any sense. I completely understand. I just want to make sure that we are a service to you and a help to you. So if any at all anything does not make sense, let us know, and we will, you know, work with you to explain, you know, all of that further. So to sell your products and services to the government, your business must meet specific requirements, and that goes from completing all government registrations, such as you know, you have to have like an SOS number, right? That's one of the things that you have to do to start a business. Your EIN number, if you're an LLC or incorporated or corporation, you know, you have to get your DUNS number. That's another thing that you have to get as a government contractor. And then we move on to SAM. SAM means System for Award Management, and this is how you would get paid if you started working with the federal government. You have to establish a code. It's called CASE code. And then we have to identify your industry. Identifying industry goes by identifying something called NAICS codes. And those NAICS codes are 6-digit numbers that the government tracks their spending by. So we have to have NAICS codes for you to be kind of tied to and that represent your business, if you will, or represent your industry, so and so forth. There's a lot of information, a lot of things that we will help you get completed in order for you to become a federal contractor. So that's just like an elementary or first level, if you will, to get started with the government. And then I would say that the most requested service that we currently have is something called bid match service. So bid match is a super easy tool for the business owner that will allow him to or her to receive government notices without having to do much research or prospecting or just looking around for those government opportunities. It's very cool because the service starts by creating a business profile for you. So we'll create a business profile and it goes on and it scans all government websites that publish solicitations on a daily basis. And they make sure that you are receiving that notifications that are only applicable to your business needs. So we do that by, again, identifying your NAICS codes. We do that by establishing your capabilities and keywords. And we plug them all into this profile, looking at your geographical limitations. Where do you want to work? Whether you want to work in the state of Kentucky only, or you want to expand and be providing services nationwide. So it's pretty much, very much customizable, if you will. And we make that tool available to you after we just, we say, okay, you're a good fit for the bid match. We make that tool available within 48 hours, and then you'll start receiving those notices that the government publishes on a daily basis. And the tool alone will save you so much time as a business owner because it cuts down any research time that that you might kind of factor into your daily work. So typically a business owner without this tool will spend probably, I want to say, between 45 minutes to an hour looking for bid notices and several websites, whether it's a state website, federal website, local websites. So it just cuts down so much of the looking and thinking, where am I going to find this next opportunity? You get it on a daily basis, 6 days a week, except for Sunday. And, and again, it will improve. You will love it because 99.9% of my clients love it. They're obsessed with it, and everyone wants the bid match service. So it's a very cool tool to have and that we offer. And again, it's free for our clients as well. All right, next slide. Okay, so I wanted to kind of give you the slide of additional PTAC services. I'm not going to go over everything because, again, it's just a field of information when it comes to government procurement. But the idea here is that if you are interested in finding out more about our services, you can go to kyptac.com/what we do. And again, / I believe that you are receiving the slide, all the slides, so you'll be able to access this pretty easily by just looking at the PowerPoint slides. And then, excuse me, and then perhaps the biggest benefits our clients receive from our expertise is our weekly training sessions that we do every Thursday at 11 a.m. Cold, winter, summer, anytime, we're always at 11 a.m. Thursdays. We're on. And so you do have to register, and again, free of charge. But you do have to register because we track, who attends and we answer questions. And so it's just for spamming purposes. We track registrations and things like that. So again, once you become a client, you're going to know how to get to those Thursday webinars. And again, also the information is listed on the kyptac.com website. And the next slide is just, again, I'm not going to go through that because this is just examples of training opportunities that you could receive from our office. And this is just only a few things that we can get you involved in. And if you're, wondering something that is not covered here, we probably cover it, but I just didn't list it here. So, this is just for your information. And then the next slide is things to consider. Okay, so things to consider. And this is before you start working with the government or before you think, okay, I want to do government contracting. I want to expand, onto that 23% market share. And I want to try to sell something to the government. So I want you to think about whether you are ready to do business with the government or not, because like I said earlier, it's very complex work, but also your counselor, when you are set up with a PTAC counselor, your counselor that you will work with might do an assessment to see if you have a product or a service to sell to the government, but also look at your business as a whole and see, as an entire business, and see if you can survive the government procurement process. Because again, it's not for everyone, just because, it's very lucrative market once you crack the code and know how to work it. But, not everyone can survive. We've had businesses close down that I'm aware of. We've had businesses that go into bankruptcy. They can't keep up with the demands. They can't scale. So these are real business problems, whether you are on a private sector or a public sector. But with the government, it's just your likeliness to continue with the government sector if you have those problems is very limited, because you could get dinged, if you will, for missing a performance or missing a project, missing some assignments. So you just don't want to go through that route with the government, trust me. And so this is kind of, I put this list of questions for you because I want you to consider, am I ready? Am I, completely eligible to do business with the government? And some of them are simple, but some of them are, are going to require some deep thinking. So the first thing to consider, are you eligible under the law to do business with the government? And then, so this is, are you eligible under the law? So are you, do you have all your ducks in a row? Do you have all your paperwork done? Have you filed taxes? If you're a type of business that, let's say, does business under the table, or just doesn't even have an established business but have done a lot of work, such as painting or any type of work, you would not be considered a business unless you are actually registered within the state of Kentucky or any other state. Obviously, you have an EIN number, you have an established business plan, including a documented business plan, marketing plan, and a financial system in place. The SBDC would be a great source for getting a business plan and working with you on marketing and financial systems and processes. So they're there for you, so you use them as a resource. But if you don't have that in place already, you might want to consider pausing and going back to working with the SBDC before you can kind of graduate and work with us. You have paid taxes or owe the government any money. Again, that's a very common question we get with the government. In any type of registration that we jump into, the government will ask, have you owed any taxes, or have you, haven't paid taxes? So this is something you really have to make sure your records are clean in order to do business with the government. You have an e-commerce capability, computers and online banking, I hate to say this in today's world, but since we all working online nowadays, but, I have worked with some clients who are not ready because they simply lack any, any processes online. They don't have like an online website. They don't have all the systems that you typically need when you work with the government. Have an actual product or service. So this is pretty much no-brainer. You know, if you don't have a product or service, you're not going to sell anything to the government, even though the government loves you, we love you. There's just not, if you don't have a product that the government needs, there's nothing for us to do here. Whether you are debarred from doing business with the government for any reason, any legal disputes or reasons with the government, that's something also might be hurting your credibility as a business and will probably limit you from working with the government. And you have a positive past performance in a commercial and government work. So you don't have to have any government experience before obviously you start selling to the government. So, but you want to have at least one positive experience from a private sector or a commercial side. So you want to make sure that you have that in place, because there's almost 99.9999% the government is going to ask for something called past performance, or a historical contracts that you've done in the past. So you got to make sure you put that in place before you, and you have that on hand, and you know who that client is, and that client is willing to give you excellent and glowing recommendation, and make sure that you know who that person is pretty well. You have a capability statement for marketing your products and services. Obviously, if you don't have a capability statement, it doesn't mean that you can't sell to the government or that you're not ready. But that's one of the elements that you're going to need to have in place. And we help you create, and we work with you to create and establish when you are ready to work with us. A capability statement is a marketing tool that you're going to need to have to network and work with government agencies. And these agencies are pretty much always, they're gonna be nice to you, they're gonna welcome you, they're gonna talk to you over the phone, but at the end of the day, they're gonna say, hey, David, make sure you send me that capability statement. Forward it to me via email, and I'll take a look at your capability statement. So a capability statement is a way for you to authenticate all the work that you do, and a kind of a document that you provide to the government to make sure that you explain the services and the parts and services and goods that you offer. And then finally, the last thing to consider is whether you've obtained a formal government contracts training in the past. And that's why we're here. Again, the last two pieces doesn't mean that you are unqualified, but this is something to consider before you start selling to the government immediately. Take a step back and say, okay, I don't know much about this government domain or the federal government, and I need to call Nancy and have her explain to me this, or I need to call John or whoever is the team member to work with you to explain those procedures and rules. And obviously you don't have to use us, but we're here for you if you do want to get that knowledge. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, we're getting close. So let's talk about limitations, and I'll go through this very quickly, I hope. This slide just is going to let you know what we don't work on. As I mentioned earlier, that you have to have a product or service to sell in order to sell to the government, and in order for us to work with you. But we have certain limitations that we don't necessarily dive into, and mainly because it's somebody else's job. So, for example, the general business training and small business development counseling. This is something that's offered by the SBDC, and so they have those services offered to you. So we just try not to cross lanes or step on anyone's foot, if you will. Assistance to individuals interested in a new business. So as I said earlier, if you don't have the idea already on hand, or a business that is established, or even a product or service that you know for sure you have your hands on, and you can sell to the government, we would not be able to work with you. So that's unfortunately our limitations. But again, jumping back to the SPDC, that's something that I'm pretty sure they can do, or even SCORE can help you with. Marketing on behalf of clients. And again, we don't lobby for anyone. I'm never going to say, this business is better than this other business. I mean, I'll always have a favorite, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to lobby and say, you have to do or buy from this business. So that's just a protection for everyone. And it just would be unethical for us to do. Employee development related training. So I can't help you with your basic writing skills. I can't help you with running a project. I can't help you with any type of vocational training, or anything that you might think it's related to elevating your business or your skills in any way. But I can kind of elevate your knowledge in government contracting. So that would be something that we would be offering. I don't offer any legal assistance. None of us offer legal assistance. However, we do have Carrie Willett. She is the legal, she's basically an attorney, but she's not allowed to practice in our office. But she can give some advice, but it's kind of, really, it's a non-legal legal advice, if you will. And then finally, we don't offer any pricing. Like, I can't give you any pricing, not necessarily training. I can't tell you whether your price is actually good or bad. I can tell you when it was bought, how much it was bought in the past, and then you kind of make that judgment and make that assessment based on your own overhead, whether you think it's a good idea to have that price or to have that quote or not. So I can give you a lot of information about pricing, but I can't ever tell you whether your pricing is good or not. And again, unethical, and just because we don't want to be held liable in any way for any losses that you have. And also, again, it's your overhead. You should know how much your business should make, and what your bottom line is. And so that would be up to you. Okay, so next slide. So now we're going to go into the government procurement cycle. This should be pretty quick, and then I'm going to switch it back with, I believe, David, and he's going to take it from there. So I'm going to talk about, to give you a quick overview of how the government does procurement, to help you understand the project cycle that the government uses in order to determine their awards. So the awards don't just pop up like that. Nobody just, wakes up the next day and say, okay, I got this award, or the government doesn't necessarily knock on your door and say, here, you have an award for you. It doesn't work like that. So there's a pretty robust, rigorous system that is in place to determine these awards. And the government procurement stages go like this. We have the requirement stage, market research stage, solicitation stage, evaluation stage, and finally the source selection stage. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the first stage is the requirement stage, and during this stage, or during this phase, the government or the contracting officer will try to find out what the need is. So they are basically, a contracting officer is required to, their job is to make solicitations and try to fulfill the agency's needs. Okay, so the contracting officer's role in here would be finding out what the problem is that this agency or the specific agency is trying to fix. This is where the government is drafting specifications of what they need and justifications why they need it. They might ask for justifications for budgets. They might ask for justification for, increasing different contracts. So this is just a unique stage that you may not necessarily see as a vendor or as a contractor, but in this stage, the government is doing all this backstage work, to try to find a requirement of a need. And that is, and I emphasize the need versus the solution. Here, they're not trying to find that they want, wireless connections versus dial-up, okay? So they are trying to find, okay, we do need internet. We don't have internet, we do need the internet, but they haven't really resolved or found out that the best solution is fiber optic internet, if you will. So, so they are not necessarily looking at the end product at this point, they're just looking at the problem. Okay, and then next slide. As the next slide, which you will be introduced to, or not necessarily introduced to, but you will be aware of, is something called the market research stage. That is the notice that you typically see when you receive either bid match services or when you go to beta.sam.gov, you will identify those as either an RFI, it would be listed under something called RFI or request for information, or it would be listed under pre-solicitation. And that would be on the government website listed. But that is basically, they found out that they have a problem. They're looking for certain ideas, maybe looking for solutions. And if the problem is a little bit complex, they might go take it to a market research stage. If the need or the problem is not very complex and they kind of have an idea what to do and they're not necessarily needing to do any market research, this stage will be skipped and they'll jump into the solicitation stage versus the RFI stage. So this is something that is, again, market research doesn't always happen unless there's not necessarily a big problem, but it's a problem that we need more information on, or a need that we're looking to find new ideas. Again, dial-up versus wireless, that kind of thing. Trying to find the best, trying to find what's out there, really. So for you, what that means to you is this is your chance where you can convince the government that your solution is what they need to buy or what they need to put in the solicitation. So the market research is very critical for vendors who are interested in looking into the pre-solicitation stages, because once you find out that you are that you could possibly do this, this is where you have you could call them, you can have one-on-one meetings with them, you can have conversations with them, you can send them your capability statement and let them know that you are, you're interested in that kind of thing and you're trying to find a solution for them as well. And hopefully what that brings you to is that you actually, they use your technique, if you will, to move it to a solicitation stage. And once it moves to solicitation stage, it would be a lot easier for you to compete on that project because you kind of got a hand in it before it actually got published. So once the RFI is published, you're going to read what they're looking for. And let's say they're looking for replenishing shipping containers, just a thought. So if it was, the goal is to look for who can replenish shipping containers or who can, reutilize shipping containers. And you have this crazy business that can, that needs shipping containers or can reutilize shipping containers in any way. then you would email them and send your capability statement, but you don't necessarily send any pricing because, again, this is not an open competition. It's not an open bid. It's just at this stage, the government is trying to start their planning phase or trying to figure out what they need to do, if you will. Okay, so after they figured out what they want to do, this is where the agency, the stage with the solicitation stage, the agency found what they want, and they are now trying to find the best vendor for the job. So they kick off a fair, competitive bidding process, which we call the solicitation process. There's several stages when it comes to solicitation, but the first thing that you know when it's a solicitation, it starts with making it public. So the government will make the notice or the solicitation made public. They posted it online. They might put it in newspapers. They might announce it somehow and say, we're looking to do this. And then as a vendor, you can access this information because, again, it's a public notice, you should have access to it. And you review the solicitation, and then you try to start responding, or you move on to the next solicitation if that's not a good fit. The next step is the contracting officer here tries to manage the solicitation, restricting communications with the vendor, unlike the market research stage, where you have this dialogue and the back and forth communication with the contracting officer. And then they also will set a short window for you to ask questions, but the questions are also going to be made public. So once you email the contracting officers your questions, that information is going to be all distributed among anyone who could read it. It's a public information. So if you let's say I have this amazing idea, and you make it public and you basically spill out your secret sauce, you're going to probably lose some points. So this is why we say try to do that in the market research stage. People might realize that your idea is great and try to adapt it, and might steal, they might steal and replicate your idea, basically. So you just want to make sure, be careful of how you ask those questions, and make sure that you don't hurt yourself in that process. Also, if there's in that stage, the contracting officer is going to respond to the questions that you asked, and again, they are going to make it public. And then while that information is being made public, you're going to be responding to the solicitation. You'll submit the proposal, and then just making sure that you're meeting every metric that they're looking for. You're going to submit the proposal, and then at the end of the day, the window that's allocated to the solicitation is going to close. And after the solicitation is closed, you cannot submit any bids. So, this is where, being timely is very important, because if you're late, your solicitation is more than likely will be rejected. And then we move on to, so that's the solicitation process or solicitation stage. We move on to the evaluation stage, where the solicitation has been closed, and then the contracting officer moves to the evaluation stage, and they look at opening the responses, conducting reviews, evaluating the responses, finalizing any contract discussion. So they may kind of have a lot of follow-up questions, like, why did you use this process instead of this process? Why did you use this method? What type of survey system that you use? Things like that. They might even go further and do some site visits, or even ask you to do oral presentations. So and that's, you'll know that they are really interested in you, or maybe that you're you're one of like maybe the top 3 or 4 people who are competing very competitively in that on that solicitation. So after the stage where the government is doing their due diligence to review all their proposals, after they do all of that, then they move on to the award stage, or something what we officially call the source selection. So the source selection that's when the agency will publish the evaluation process. And then they publish who is the winner of the award. And again, this is when you shouldn't beat yourself up if you don't win, because at the end of the day, there's going to be only one winner, even if it's kind of the lottery, when a lot of people play, but there's only one winner who gets it. Sometimes maybe more than one winner in some cases. But basically, if you submit the award and you meet all the criteria, your pricing is reasonable, and you follow all the evaluation criteria that you have, and you do win, that's when they're going to publish your name, and your name and your address is going to be made public, and they're going to say, I don't know, Bob's Hubcap Shop won this award, and it's for $30,000. So they will publish the award amount, and so that would be going to archives, into historical information, and so it can be accessed at a future date as well. The vendor will also allow 3 to 5 business days for any debriefing. And debriefing is the process of giving you feedback if you want it. So if you request for a debriefing, you'll be able to get it. And debriefing goes both ways. Whether you win or you lose, you are allowed or have the right to ask for debriefing. And they should give you an understanding why you did not win, if you didn't win, and kind of where you fell short, if you will, on that. That is after that, if you don't agree with their decision and you feel like the system was rigged, it happens, you have an opportunity to go into protest, which is protesting the decision-making process of the solicitation or the contract. So that's also, it requires some legal work, but it's an option that's available to American citizens, and you can kind of dive into that if you're interested. So that concludes the last stage, which is the award stage, concludes the procurement cycle. And let's go into the next stage. And then that gives us kind of a quick overview of the procurement cycle, gives us overview of the services that we can offer you, and kind of gives you some requirements of what the government is looking for. So we can kind of dive into the Q&A if there's any. And final thought is, if you are interested to become a client and get those free services, you can go into the PTAC Contact Us a link here, and it basically will walk you through all of the steps.
Thank you, Nancy. That's quite a bit to digest in one day. But it's really an opportunity, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I have a quick question, though. You mentioned that it can cost maybe a significant amount of money to get started to do the research. What do you spend that money on? What are the expenses?
To do the government research from a
before you get your first contract, you would have to spend so much money or some money to get to an award, maybe.
Maybe I misspoke, or maybe I just wasn't very clear. So if you're talking about the contracting officer who's looking to do market research, what they do is really they go into, if it's a federal contract, they go into beta.sam.gov, or I'm sorry, sam.gov, which is a system for award management, and look at solicitation, look at for contractors that could qualify to do the job. That type of research does not cost any money, but I think maybe where I misspoke or did not speak clearly is this is where those stages where the government is trying to justify their spending and trying to kind of understand how much this is going to require, or give an estimate of whether is it going to be 5,000 or is it going to be 5 million. So get an idea of how much it costs. So they'll look at pricing and the price ranges in the marketplace and kind of determine a fair market value, if you will, to make sure that nobody is getting ripped off, especially because this is taxpayer dollars, and also that they make an educated decision as well.
Thank you. Tony, you got any questions for us today?
I sure do, Dave. Nancy, great presentation, by the way, so thank you for that. Tammy Bicknell, you're more than welcome. Tammy, how are you doing? She is asking, what type of products does the government purchase?
Wow, this is the $1 million question. Good job, Tammy. I'm very impressed. So that's a very long answer, but the government buys everything. They buy, believe it or not, they are interested in toilet paper as much as you are. So, so they'll look at, from buying toilet paper to, pens, to buying airplanes, jets, manufacturing parts, everything and anything. Some of the things that they might be interested in is outdated things like outdated technologies that maybe the public might still be using and buying, but they may not be. They're trying to move away from that. Another thing that they could not necessarily buy is something that like personal services sometimes fall into that. But then again, it's not every agency. For example, like the Department of Energy might not necessarily look for businesses who are doing, selling hair products or selling I don't know, massage services or PT, where the Veteran Administration, the Department of Veterans Affairs, they might be looking into looking for PTs, someone who can do PT work, or they can do some kind of, physical training or some personal service that the government. So it really depends on who's buying. And then again, remember, you have the federal government, you have the local government, you have the state government. So there's different municipalities, different agencies out there that procure different things, but they do buy pretty much. I mean, it's really rare that I've seen, we've even worked with a designer that designed hats, and he tried to bid and found a contract that the government is willing to buy. So, there's really no limitations, but I will add that the government, the counselor that you work with will give you kind of basically a historical spending report. So that's something I do very, it's typically done, and everyone on our team can do is look at your industry and kind of give you an idea of maybe the last 5 years, 4 years, 3 years of historical spending that the government have bought, and everything is recorded. So you'll be able to kind of gauge whether it would be a competitive market for you or not.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is from Jose. He wants to know if Kentucky PTAC will help with updating SAM registration.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question, Jose. So SAM would be one of those things. It's, you know, it's everyone's nightmare, it seems like, but you know, we're trained enough and have done it enough to kind of guide you through it and help you with it. So absolutely.
So I have a quick question here. So we've talked a lot about federal contracting, and this is kind of a left turn. There's also opportunities in state and local governments, and if so, is that a place to start, or just jump right into the big pool, the deep end first?
It really depends on what you sell. But for someone, for example, that I know some clients like related to what we are, the situation we're in today, someone who sells masks and sells you know, anything that's personal hygiene, they could run to their state and say, hey, we sell those products and we can, you know, we can help you. But maybe someone who has that offers, I'm trying to think, that offers manufacturing parts. We have a lot of manufacturers in Kentucky, and specifically in the aviation field. And you know, these manufacturers, they are going to, their main audience or main client is going to be the federal government, specifically the Defense Logistics Agency, or Department of Defense, DoD. So DoD takes up 60% of their total annual spending budget. So they're always looking for manufacturers. And again, this is part of, and it's a really good question because it's really part of your assessment phase, where we're looking at whether you have a product to sell to the government, which is the best direction. But again, you bring a good point as well, because if you're too small and you're still diving into the marketplace, into government contracting, you might want to start in local and state first, and kind of establish and build up your clout, if you will, and then go into bigger jobs that you can handle and can scale on, I mean. So hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
So my next question is, do you have any, like, people are asking questions about how do they research to kind of figure out which agency to go for? Are there any websites that you might recommend them to do before they contact you all? Okay.
Sure. You can go to beta.sam.gov. That's one of the areas you can start and see how many government contracts that's out there. If you're looking to look at spending, you can go to usaspending.gov. It's a great tool. You can just simply put your keywords or your industry or the business that you're in. Like, for example, you can do construction if you're in construction, and you can drill down to small businesses, and it would give you the historical spending of how much it's been spent. Additionally, we can help you with that as well. If you're not sure where to go or you're not sure how to do it, we can kind of sit down with you and have a session. You know, we can do it online now that we're using Zoom and all these teleconferencing tools. We can also do that with you over the computer and help you with that.
Thank you. I have a question here from Miss Bennett. She says, my business is a medical weight loss clinic. Does this apply to a business like mine?
Again, I would have to look, Ms. Bennett. So, you know, I applaud you for having this clinic, but I can't tell you, like, I have to do the research, because, you know, we're looking, like I said, at $4.45 trillion of spending. Like, on a daily basis, just daily, okay, just daily, the government puts out 3,000 solicitations per day. So the government spends $600,000 per minute. So I cannot tell you, unless I do the research with you and sit with you, whether, yes, on top of right off bat, that you do qualify or not. It could be, there's a possibility that there's a, you know, the government's trying to help, you know, maybe the health administration is trying to help businesses lose weight, individuals lose weight, and there's an opportunity with you to connect with them, but I can't necessarily tell you or guarantee anything until we sit down and do the work. And I understand that a lot of people are interested in to know, but this is where, you know, I kind of need you to sit on one-on-one and kind of evaluate that.
So I got a question. So let's just say you went through the market research and you've identified some opportunities. Does a personal connection with the purchasing officer, is that an important thing that you need to develop?
No, I mean, not every contract. Again, with the amount of contracts, I mean, I thought that the contracting officer has time to speak with everyone, you know, but if they are with everyone who's trying to compete on a certain contract, I mean, I think they would spend their entire day talking on the phone or meeting in meetings. So I doubt that it just depends on the complexity of the project. And yes, I do recommend you connecting with them. For example, like we do a lot of training, and they call it either supplier diversity or even a reverse trade show. And reverse trade show means that the agency or the school system or any type of agency that's tied to the government comes to meet and have all the businesses come and visit with them. So this is an opportunity where you hand your capability statements that we built with you and introduce your business and kind of just build this personal connection. Now, again, they're not gonna, you know, build a personal connection and automatically award you a contract. There has to be a need. That's one. There has to be obviously there has to be a budget for it, and they have to also open it for everyone. So even that you have a personal connection, and I may have a personal connection with someone in the government, I still have to do my due diligence to meet all the requirements that they're looking for. And that could include, you know, meeting technical capabilities, making sure that I meet the deadline. Like I can't tell them, yeah, just award me the contract and I'll do it in 60 days. And they have asked for 30 days turnaround. So you just have to meet their deadline, meet their requirements, stay under their budget. So there's a lot of factors to consider. And that's where I touched a little bit on the evaluation process. The evaluation process will kind of give you guidance of what they're looking to, what they are mostly interested in. So.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Tony?
Yes, I have a few more questions. This one I think is fairly simple. It says, does it cost money to get a DUNS number?
No. DUNS number, Sam, all of that free of charge. I would say that 99% of even certifications, any registration that you're going to run into is going to be free of charge. And I recommend you to use the free services that's out there. There is some local and state certifications that require you to pay, and I don't know why they want people to pay. Not my decision, but a certification like an MBE certification, you know, would require you to pay $500 or $600, while the SBA certifications for women-owned small businesses is absolutely free. So, and there's pros and cons to gaining either certifications, and I just don't want to go into that today, but, you know, again, it's a field of information, and there's a lot. But yeah, you always want to look for the free. If you do run into paid sites, it could be possibly scam sites and someone who's trying to just take your money and run. So be careful.
Okay. This last question comes from Tim Miller. He says, this is a great presentation. He's basically asking for some of your advice. So his problem is that he goes, what would be the procedure if I want to bid projects, but it's but it's fairly obvious that a contractor is working closely with the bid officer, and they're adding like some extra qualification requirements to the point where a contractor that is not a large company has no chance of winning these bids. Therefore, it seems unfair. Do you have any advice for him? Like maybe he could reach out to a SADBU or something like that?
I'm not aware of any. If they put it in the solicitation, you have to meet it. So unfortunately, if they say, you need additional training, or your staff needs to have, hypothetically speaking, your staff needs, additional 80 hours per year of training. And obviously you can't afford to send your staff for 80 hours, 2 weeks worth of training. And that's something that they worked it out with the other guy, or, it's someone who has unfortunately, has persuaded the government into thinking that this is valuable or this is important. And unfortunately, if it's on the solicitation, then it's just, this is it. I mean, you have to meet that criteria. Now, the work around that, if it was on the it wasn't on the solicitation and they awarded the business, so you meet all the qualifications and you did all the work, and you, let's say, you are one of the top 2, and they awarded it to somebody else who had good connections with, and there's a specific reason why they awarded it to. After you ask for debriefing, and after you, kind of understand why they want to, why they went with the other person, and you feel like it was unfair or unjust, you can simply start the protest process. Now, you have to make sure that it's worth your time and effort, and because it's a battle that you're going to go down the road with, a battle that might be tough. But there's a lot of, I know a lot of personally businesses that have protested and got awarded. If they didn't get awarded, they restarted the bid process. So they basically gave them another 2 weeks, and they submitted their the proposals or quotes again, and they restarted the fair evaluation process because somebody protested. So there's a possibility that you can protest post award. You do have a window of time. You can't go 6 months later and protest. You do have that window that say that, and you have to notify them that you are going to protest, so that they can stop the execution, and they can stop the contractor, and they can stop the payments, all of that. So they have to make a stop on the award in order to address the protest first. So I hope that makes sense or answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One last question. Is that okay, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I know we ran over time. I apologize. I do talk a lot. A weakness of mine.
So, and Tim tells Mr. Miller, who had that question, he said, "Thank you so very much, Nancy."
You're welcome, Mr. Miller.
So Pietra, I think I'm saying her name correctly. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. She wants to know if historical research is a service that the government can buy.
Historical is
research. Historical research.
Is the government can buy?
Yeah, can the government buy that service, historical research?
Why would they buy it? They already have it. I'm not understanding this question. I mean, the government has already. They already have data and records on what they're spending. So they can simply, and it's according to the Freedom of Information Act, this is all public information. So I don't know why they would spend it, unless you're saying that somebody else took this information and made it a lot easier to read and maybe a lot easier to navigate. And so they're basically they're a supplier that is trying to improve the way the data is displayed, and they're charging a fee to get access to that. But I don't know if you want to clarify that question. I don't know if I'm answering it, but they should have their information. And each department knows how much spends. I know, like Tony would probably know how much her department spends, David, all of that. So I don't know why they would buy something that they already have. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions over here. I'll go ahead and hand it back over to you, Dave.
All right. Well, this was great, Nancy. This was really, really, really great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I encourage everybody to do a little research and reach out to the Kentucky PTAC once you determine that you have an opportunity. And as always, we're here to help as well. And so, again, thanks for joining us today. Janet, anything you'd like to share with us today before we go? No? Okay. Tony?
No, I just want to thank you again for being a part of our webinar today, Nancy. Thank you.
Yeah. You are mostly welcome, and I'm glad the mic worked. I was
So we'll definitely have to have you back, Nancy. This was of great interest to people, and it's really something, an opportunity that people need to take advantage of. So cool. Thank you again so much.
You're welcome. And any questions, feel free to contact us and let us know. We'll be happy to answer any questions. And nice to talk and see everyone today, and stay safe.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.